Welcome to a special conversational pace episode, everyone. We have the Rabbit Dream Chaser today. No, it's not a trail shoe, but this is like our quarterly road shoe review. We are doing just kind of like an initial impressions review. This is not like a full, durability review or anything like that. But we both got this shoe sent to us for the sake of testing purposes. We didn't get paid to like say we liked the shoe or anything like that. But the Single Track podcast does have a like multi-year long partnership,
Yes.
having gone with Rabbit.
Yes.
We just wanted to like keep it 100 for everyone and throw that out there. That does not, we're not afraid though. At least I'm not afraid. I don't know about you, Finn. I am not afraid to bash the shoe if I feel it's deserving of bashing, because it's all for the sake of, like, it's out of love. It would be
Yes.
purely out of wanting to see improvements to this shoe. So we've got the Rabbit Dream Chaser. We both ran in it like once, and we were both like, I think we need to do an episode on this shoe because it's, there's just some things to talk about.
It's conversation worthy.
This is conversation worthy. You're absolutely right. The biggest one is that Rabbit has never made a shoe before, and we're seeing more companies come out with their first shoe, probably in the last 2 years than in the last like 2 decades. And I think that's so cool.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
When you see a new entrant into the shoe market, if they're like a first and foremost shoe brand, are you harder on them? Are you more critical on them versus, for example, an apparel brand coming into the market and trying to do shoes? How do you think about those dynamics?
I try not to have any like preconceived like ideas of what their shoe's going to be like. For coming from, like if it's like a footwear brand, like I know at some point in the future we're going to see Keen trail running shoes. I'm curious. Oh shit. There we have it. That's probably the first. That's probably the first on the internet. For those watching the Dream Chaser, you just saw a mega sneak peek of a Keen trail running shoe. I would expect them to nail it a little bit more on the first try because they have a past in footwear. Does that mean that they would nail like the running ethos of a shoe? No, because they come from walking. I don't necessarily expect them to create a great running shoe. But in the instance of Rabbit, I'm really curious what their take on a footwear shoe is because they haven't made a shoe before.
Yeah.
So that excites me because that like leaves the door like totally open to, I have no idea what this could be like. I don't know. I would say it's kind of unique in many ways. Just a quick rundown like of the materials. So I guess for one, I think it runs pretty true to size. I got a size 10 and it fits me the way a size 10 should. What did you get and how does that work?
Size 12, and it's right on the border of being a half size too big for me. I actually struggled with lockdown a bit on the show. I went right to the last eyelet, did a pretty secure runner's knot, and struggled a little bit. So it's right on that edge for me.
That actually brings up an interesting thought. Like I always wonder how like linearly exact the sizing is. Like if it's true to size in a 10 for me, how much does that actually guarantee it's going to be true to size for a 12 for you?
We're getting into this whole it depends world. It extends into every single element of shoe wear.
That sucks because I thought my 10 felt like pretty spot on for like a pretty traditional 10, and your 12 is maybe a smidge long.
Right on the border. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so that's just 2 data points for people to know. But my pair came in at 10.6 ounces, 303 grams in that US men's size 10. We're looking at 27 millimeter forefoot, 32 millimeter heel for the stack height, 5 millimeter drop. And I don't think that was including the 5 millimeter thick insole. So you actually are going to get like 5 millimeters of additional insole stack. That's normally insignificant, but as we kind of move into some of the details and features of the shoe, this shoe comes with like a name brand insole. It's probably not a name brand that people are familiar with, but it's a company called Blue Maca, and they make Finn, what did you say was 85%? recycled.
85% recycled eTPU.
Yeah, so it's an eTPU midsole, which is significantly more durable than like the crappy floppy foams that we get in a traditional insole. So this one's actually going to take a very long time for this initial few millimeters of squish to flatten out, which from a performance standpoint, I don't think it's adding anything. From a comfort standpoint, it adds a lot because you get like that fun, nice, soft step and feel basically for the entire life of the shoe. And in some instances, especially when we talk about ultra running, like comfort is smooth and then smooth is fast.
Mm.
I don't think we're going to see a TPU midsole or insole like this in like a marathon super shoe. And that's because it's actually pretty heavy. I weighed this insole and this insole weighs 32 grams. So it's like a little over an ounce. That means nothing without any reference. I just reviewed or I just weighed the Ultra Mont Blanc Carbon insole, which is a traditional foam. That one weighs 15 grams. So that one weighs less than half as much. So then that's a pretty like traditional insole foam. So this insole weighs like almost twice as much as your typical insole. But when we're putting it in a comfort oriented shoe, I think it's fine, and I think it's a great material choice from a cushion comfort standpoint.
Yeah, and you also, I mean, you kind of touched on it, but you just think about where Rabbit is coming from. They're coming from the standpoint of apparel expertise, and I find
Mhm.
that fascinating when you think about what sort of like worldviews and biases that they want to bring into the shoe world from that apparel realm. They have that famous phrase like softest threads in existence when they refer to their apparel lines, and they kind of brought that ethos into this shoe. We'll probably get into it more, but like you definitely feel it in the upper, and you feel that sort of angle of craftsmanship in the midsole as well. Like in all the product selections, material selections, it's definitely there. Like you feel like an apparel company made this shoe in a good way.
Yeah. And if anyone's ever worn like Rabbit's classic, what is it, like the Easy Tee?
Yeah.
Is that what it's called? Like that is the softest t-shirt material on the face of the planet. And if you took the that mindset to a shoe, this is what you get. Because so we just touched on the insole. We were talking about the upper, and you had a great comment about the upper.
Ha. Yeah. So you hear like the phrase knit like or knit construction on uppers thrown around a lot. This is the most obvious form of knit like I have ever seen in my life. Like this is a straight up like grandma type knit construction. Like they talk about conversation worthy. They
Yes.
truly took the word knit upper and they put that phrase on steroids.
Yes, like there is a 50% chance your grandma crafted the upper of this shoe.
Absolutely.
Um, the one like slight negative that I will say with that is while it's extremely comfortable and it's got these like this grid-like pattern that has this like puffiness and cushiness to it, it's kind of warm. It's a pretty thick material and it's pretty hot and it holds on to a lot of moisture. So I've run 30 miles in the shoe, one treadmill run and two road runs. And both my road runs, they always have like a little bit of like gravel or dirt on them. And every time I finished a run, the shoe was like pretty saturated and like pretty wet. So
Mm.
it's very comfortable, but at the expense of some breathability.
That's really interesting because I was reading on their site like the value prop when they talk about the upper, it quote it gently hugs the foot and wicks sweat while these perforations you see, quote unquote, allow airflow to keep your feet cool. So it's interesting that
It's
might not be working as
it's
advertised.
no, it's not perfed. It's not perfed enough. Like we need more perfs. Increase the perf content. Um, I think if the material could just be a little bit thinner, it would breathe better. But that's the drawback for having something that's very comfortable. The upper is very comfortable. Like you could run in it without socks, no
Yep.
problem. So that's pretty cool. I thought the heel cup very comfortable. It's got the little swallowtail type design. I had no issues there. Oh, god.
I was gonna say I reviewed or I tested this shoe in the few days after we reviewed the Mont Blanc Carbon, which has a much shallower depth. Kind of well, there's problems with heel retention in that shoe. No problems here. Really like nice, comfy heel flare. I
Yeah.
think like adequately padded. Yeah,
Yep,
awesome.
100%. So yeah, it's a nice upper. It's comfortable. I think it looks nice. This is the Boston colorway. It's funny. So the laces are kind of cool. They're like very, again, very soft feeling, and like the eyelets are almost like just like dipped in like a rubbery type material. And I was laughing to myself, because I do that oftentimes. The rabbit shorts that I have a more robust shoelace in the waistband, and I hate it because when I tie the knot with the shoelace, it's got, like, metal, like, aglets, that's the little
Yeah.
piece at the end here. The
Yeah, yeah.
eggs are metal, it's like a very thick round shoelace, and when I tie it, it creates a bump right on the front, and it irritates, like, the front of my stomach.
Interesting.
Why? How could they? It's like backwards. They put a real shoelace on the shorts, but then they put like a shorts lace on the shoes. Whereas I think all of their shorts moving forward should have this lace because this is softer and thinner and more comfortable and better in every way.
Yeah.
Um, I just thought that was kind of funny how
So
there's
they're called aglets.
aglets. Yep.
Aglets, yeah. I
That's our
so
that's our word of the day.
super super minor gripe for me. As I was pulling these aglets through the last aglets through the eyelet, they are the material here is a little bit it makes it difficult to pull through just because it is like less rigid, a little bit more flimsy than a
Mhm.
typical shoe
Yep.
aglet. So minor gripe, but yeah, as I was kind of pulling through that last eyelet, it was tough.
Yeah. Let's talk about the midsole and outsole a little
Oh
bit.
boy.
So, the midsole is an eTPU midsole. So we're breaking that down. Expanded thermal polyurethane. And what we've learned about polyurethane midsoles, so like Solomon S-Lab Ultra has had the polyurethane. I think Adidas Boost. Don't quote me on that, but very durable, very bouncy, very heavy. Those have been kind of the three things about like a PU midsole. As far as polyurethane midsoles go, this is by far the softest one I have ever run in. Like, this is one of the softest shoes I've ever run in. Like, I immediately got taken back to like New Balance, the more trail type softness, except I liked the rebound of this better because it's eTPU and not just very, very low density EVA. What did you think of this midsole foam and how soft it is? Because in the most politest of terms, you apply a little bit more power to the ground than I do.
Are you calling me fat?
No, I'm just saying you got more watts than me.
Um,
What
yeah,
did you think of it?
well, first of all, I love that I had not thought of to make the comparison to the New Balance V-More trail shoe, which in retrospect, I think that's a great comparison. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think one of the first things that came to mind for me was the balance here. I think it does a great job of balancing cushion and lightweight design. You can also see, like, especially with placement of the midsole foam in some parts, they're aiming for a certain like controlled ride type of experience. I do have some gripes there, but I do like the balance between cushion and lightweight because I think that's a tough line to straddle.
It's light enough. It's not light.
Yeah,
Like, my shoe weighs 10.5 ounces,
yeah.
but for how
For an everyday trainer,
for an everyday trainer and for the quality of cushion, like, this is one of those, like, endless just cushion type shoes. Like, this is your Cadillac, like, this is our Escalade of 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 just, like, road shoes, like, it's definitely a pavement pounder. Like, I think I texted you at one point, I was like, "To me, this shoe makes running on pavement, or, like, the cons of running on pavement, irrelevant."
yeah.
Like, I feel like I am absorbing so much shock that I could run all of my miles on pavement and not be as beat up as I normally am.
I think that is one of the best value props for this shoe. If they're listening, I hope they incorporate that in because that's perfect.
Yeah, I'm hopeful, of course, I've only run 30 miles on it. The eTPU is very resilient. Like, I am hopeful that this will be, like, the most durable of the mega cushioned soft shoes out
Mm.
there. Like, this is just as plush as a Hoka Bondi, but I bet the plushness lasts longer in this shoe because of the material.
We should do a segment that's like once every 4 years, and it's titled like "How We Doing," and it's just like a shoe that we believed would go the distance, and we over the course of like a decade got a chance to do like 1,000 in it, and it's like, "How we doing?"
Yeah, I thought about that on a long run the other day of like, what if we dedicated an entire month where you and I ran in one shoe for a whole month and tried to knock out like 400, 500 miles, and we just did a weekly check-in on like, how's the shoe doing now? And then by like, it could be like a point where like 2.5 weeks we were like, dude, the shoe is completely dead, but I have to keep running like 200 more miles in it.
Yeah, so
What?
I have one knock. I have
Yeah.
one knock, and I mentioned the control, like they're clearly trying to create like a controlled ride experience, stability element. I get that.
Mhm.
That's common in a lot of everyday trainers, but the placement of some of the midsole foam was questionable to me. So I had to look up this phrase, lateral longitudinal arch. So
Mm.
there's a lot of weird amounts of midsole foam packed into the edges of this, but without corresponding foam on the other side to create that boat-like sensation we were talking about in Brooks shoes. It made me feel like my feet were constantly caving inward and like unintentionally pronating, so balance was
Mm.
constantly off. That was a big issue for me. That from like a
Interesting.
ride standpoint, that was really problematic.
I bet that's gonna be something that ends up being a bit of a hit or miss type thing for people because technically our foot has 3 arches. Like you have the big arch that we see, you have the longitudinal arch on the other side, and then you have a transverse arch, which is the arch that like goes across all of your metatarsals. Like it's supposed to be
Yep.
a little bit that most runners, like 2 of the 3 are just completely flat. Some people who have very healthy feet, they're actually still gonna have some arch shape to their shoes. But you're right, this is one of those shoes that has a little bit of rise on that side, and for some, it's gonna be, like, pretty unnoticed, like, because my foot's a little bit narrower, I sit within the confines of that
Mm,
more, so I didn't notice that as much, like, on
yeah.
either end because I'm getting more almost of like the bucket seat type effect. But if
Yes.
you are pushing the edges of the shoe, you're right. It's almost actually that it's equal on both sides, which normally it's like 75% on the medial side, 25% on the lateral.
Mm,
So some people might notice that. I think they can probably get away with it a little bit because the foam is so soft. Like
sure.
if it was any firmer, I bet you're like just dropping F-bombs here about how much this shoe pissed off your feet. But because it's so soft, that longitudinal arch, man, Finn with the big words today.
Well, we got
Being,
aglets, we got longitudinal arches, like
I
we're just
know.
slinging vocab.
Yeah. So, and I guess the other thing too is like maybe we need to run in more road shoes to see if like that's just like a difference between road and trail. Like maybe trail has a flatter feel for that sort of thing. Whereas like maybe that feel that you think is weird is actually what would help you from like not getting an overuse type injury if you were running like 100 miles a week on the roads.
Well, maybe since we're both about to have kids soon, we could commit to a simultaneous like a 16-week marathon block and just do like a quarterly road
Oh,
thing
dude.
each year.
Yes, 100%. I am ready for that. Finn and Brett train for a marathon and switch to road shoes for a quarter. We are absolutely doing that. Treadmill's about to get a lot of use. Treadmill's on this side. Um, Underfoot, this is interesting. So we've seen this before too, where it's like not a full coverage outsole. I think on a road shoe like this, totally fine, especially an ETPU foam.
Yep.
This is just more durable. Um, I think from a durability standpoint, for the outsole rubber, totally fine. The other feature that is in like the promo material for the shoe is the carbon tracks technology, which is basically 2 carbon shanks. Like they would not let you wear this shoe in jail because you could probably pry these off and sharpen them up and make a nice little blade with them. Like these are shanks in its truest form, but they are there to help with the one of our favorite words again, the torsional
Torsional.
rigidity
Torsional.
rigidity of this shoe. So it helps keep the shoe from twisting a little bit too much this way, and it also keeps the arch from like full on twisting and collapsing. And I think it does its job, but I do not love how they are so close to the ground. One, I mean, I don't run on perfect concrete. Like if you're running on like perfect concrete, you're probably not going to notice it. But like even on like chip and seal type pavement here, like in
Mm.
the mountains. And then like I run on dirt roads. When I run in this shoe, I sound like a friggin' tap dancer. It is just clickety clacking all the way down the road. And like I'm usually listening to music or the single track podcast when I run, and it's fine, but like, dude, it's loud. And it's like every once in a while you hit a rock and it just like blows up under your shoe. Like it sounds like you're breaking glass. It sounds like when you hit a big eggshell, like in the middle of your scrambled eggs, and it just like kind of makes you like, ugh. Sorry, I had to interrupt the shoe review because I just got an email from Rabbit actually, like as I'm editing this review. And they have informed me that they actually made an inline change to the shoe, and that is regarding the exposed carbon along the bottom of the shoe. They have decided to cover up the carbon pieces with additional outsole rubber, so now you won't sound like a clickety-clack tap dancer when you go run outside. Pretty cool to see Rabbit actually making this inline change so quickly before the shoe even officially launches. I believe it comes out on June 20th, and I'm going to attach a picture below of what this shoe looks like. So here it is. This is going to be the finalized version. But yeah, really cool to see Rabbit just immediately listening to the customer and reviewer feedback, making that change and pumping it out to market before before the shoe even releases. I feel like a lot of other companies would have waited an entire year to make that change simply because they're like, ah, yeah, it'll be fine. So kudos to you, Rabbit, for making such a quick change. Okay, we'll get back to the rest of the shoe review.
What's your theory on like why these? And it's hard to kind of show the depth of the cutout, but how do you explain these like cutout choices on the medial side of the sort of outsole, midsole foam area?
So you see this more commonly in road shoes, and it's like it's a decoupled heel. So
Mm,
basically what we're doing is we're letting the outside of the heel move independently in one way while the lateral side gets to stay, or opposite. The lateral side of the heel gets to move independently, as your foot hits the ground. It can almost break away from the shoe and start stabilizing the foot without actually twisting the entire shoe. You want to allow the shoe to do that to an extent. So like that's why they have a little bit of a flex groove here, and then the rubber actually still connects because it'll move a little bit, but not all the way. There's been shoes in the past where like the foam is totally exposed here, or they make like a deep cutout, or they even like cut this chunk of the foam out and insert an even softer foam. And there's been times where like heavy heel strikers like legitimately break that part of the shoe off. So it's a way for them to still get that decoupled heel shock absorption design without actually like sacrificing the shoe, like ripping in half. As like computers and such have like taken over the design of all these shoes, we see the midsole foam geometries and like where to add volume, where to take it away. We're seeing that change more than ever to like fully optimize your foot strike.
okay, brilliant. What for you? What would you like to see? What are like one or two things you would like to see change in a V2?
Honestly, really the only thing is like I would love to see a slightly more breathable upper. But other than that, I love the cushion. I love the shape. I love the fit. It's super comfortable. I could run on the roads all days. Like this morning, I was gonna run for like 6 miles. I ended up going 12 just because I was just like tippy tapping my way down the road in these shoes.
Well, what do you grade on like a Madden score scale? What do you grade this first attempt at a shoe for Rabbit?
Does Madden do different grades for like a rookie?
I
Because
think
like
s oh,
because a rookie that's like an 85 is way
it's
better than
great.
like a veteran that's
Who's
an
like an
85.
85. Yeah,
Yeah. So like a rookie score of an 85, I think is pretty solid.
yeah.
Um, I think it's like a great mileage shoe. Like if I'm training for a marathon right now, especially the Boston Marathon because we get the Boston colorway here. But if I'm training for a marathon, I would no question use this for like 75, 80% of my daily mileage because it's just so easy to put the shoe on and go run in and just jog in. Like I'm not
Mm.
I'm not going to do anything faster in it, but like long runs and just like zone 1, zone 2 mileage, like absolutely. For those who have stuck around, we've got a little discount code for you. Take it away,
Yeah.
Finn.
Yeah, so like I said, I do have competing interests here. I have proudly worked with Rabbit for the last year and a half. We actually have the founder, Monica DeVries, coming on the podcast next week to talk about sort of the business decisions in the future of this shoe. So by the time this goes live, that episode might be live. We can link to it in the show notes. But yeah, the code is SingleTrack20. You can use it at checkout for 20% off your order, which includes footwear. And I guess I'll just add a couple more like final thoughts. I think it can be tough for companies that exist in another category to come into a new category like shoe. But you look at this logo, this rabbit, you think of the name rabbit, like the brand name, the logo was perfectly intended for this move into footwear. I think it almost was like, should have been, I mean, I shouldn't say should. It's an easy transition. I love the name Dream Chaser. And if they do end up making a trail version, I said to you, they should call it the Peak Chaser. That should be their trail
Yes.
version, the Peak Chaser.
Yeah, that is one of my big takeaways is that after running in this shoe, I could not stop thinking about what this would be like in its trail form. And, I'm gonna keep to myself some of the shoes that I thought it could be like because that shoe doesn't exist yet. So like, but it had my mind racing and I cannot wait for well, also I'm also speculating as well because I have no idea if they're gonna do a trail shoe, but I cannot wait for the trail version of the shoe, just a trail shoe for Rabbit to make because they make some of my favorite trail apparel. Um, so yeah, those are some initial impressions. Thanks for watching. Yeah, go try out a Dream Chaser. It's a fun one.